Let's take a moment and talk about the difference between a hinge and a squat and what that means to you. Very often they get treated as two individual movement patterns that are separate and distinct from each other. But in reality, in the human body, no two bodies are exactly the same. These two movement patterns exist on a continuum, not separate from each other, but interrelated with each other. And so I'm going to give you the clear definition, the way that I interpret it, and the way that I use it for myself and for the people that I work with, so that we can be very clear. Because it's pretty common to see someone post a video on the internet and they say, you're squatting your swing too much, or you need to hinge more, or you're not hinging enough, and whatever. And I find that sort of terminology can be very confusing, because it doesn't take into account a clear definition of what a squat is and what a hinge is. So I'm going to explain that, and they exist on a continuum. And I'm going to start with the squat. And the squat, the definition that I use for the squat is we start out from a standing position. The angle of the hip and the angle of the knee in a squat will change at the same rate to the same degree. What I mean by that is I'm standing straight. As I start to go into my bottom position, or as I start to lower myself into position, my hips flex and my knees flex the same rate to the same degree. When I get to about 90 degrees, I've got about a 90-degree bend in my knee and about a 90-degree bend in my hip. If I sink lower than that, that angle increases. And as I come up, ideally, the knees straighten and the hips straighten to the same degree at the same rate. That's how I define a squat. A hinge is on the other end of a continuum, and the way it looks is the hips will move more and to a greater degree than the knees do. So it's a very hip dominant movement. That's what the hinge looks like. And if we total the whatever angle this is, probably 45 degrees from shin to femur, and then whatever angle this is from my spine to my femur, if we add those two joint angles together, we should come up with 180, which is a straight line. So coming in and out of the hinge is primarily a hip dominant movement, and the knees are just along for the ride. That's a hinge. Going in and out of the squat, angle of the hip, angle of the knee change same degree at the same rate. The at the same rate is very important, because this is not a good squat. That's a hinge with a following up knee bend, right? This is not a good squat. We want the timing to be such that these things change at the same rate to the same degree in a squat. So now that we've clearly defined those parameters, we can actually start to work on the movement patterns themselves.